want you, father. I want to save you, mother. I want to kill you, feel it.
From the molten lake of fire at the gates of hell to the frozen fjords of Norway, the dark and visually compelling epic, The Northman, released into theaters this weekend. But does this tale of love and revenge compare to the sweeping epics and gargantuan heroes that the Norse are known for? Let's find out. Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and Norse mythology has always fascinated me. Their lore and morality appealing to me despite its barbaric nature at times. The Northman thrived when it delved into this mythology and the morality derived from Norse culture. Mysticism was at the very heart of the film, a very thin line drawn between what is real and what is imagined. The film never makes a concrete statement on whether or not the gods of Norse mythology are real, or the magic derived from them are true factors in this world. Regardless of their truth or tangibility, they left an impact on the story from how they inspired the individual characters to be who they are. The morality of the Northman is complicated and a nebulous concept. No character escaped the film unscathed from monstrous deeds, and no one was truly good. Yet they all had a spark of goodness that creates a level of complexity to the narrative. Even the villain, who did all he did for love. Our modern society may look down on the barbaric nature of their culture at times, human sacrifice and blood oaths personifying the era, but I can't help but respect them and their culture greatly for their fundamental values of honor, strength, and family, all fading values that our modern society could greatly benefit from. All this combined with a stellar cast, incredible music and sound, production design, and a level of talent in the writing that is altogether foreign in modern Hollywood created an epic tale for the ages. It's hard to trust current-day audiences to recognize the value of the story and its deserved place among the classics, so I have very little doubt that it will slip into obscurity very soon. But it is one of the best films from the last 5 to 10 years. It should be heralded as equal to films like Braveheart, Gladiator, and The Predator, solidifying its place among the greats. It has been many years since Hollywood has had the talent, or even the will, to deliver such a compelling, thought-provoking, and driven narrative. It is truly great. And spoilers ahead. The Northman is not the tale that the trailers led the audience to believe. It is far more visceral, violent, graphic, and compelling than could be at first supposed. After the first act, the film switches gears, changing from an action revenge film into a straight-up horror film from the perspective of the monster, rather than the victims. This film follows Amleth, a prince driven from his home after his father's murder and betrayal by his uncle Fiennes. Fueled only by his hate, this young prince builds himself into a frightening berserker, intent on only one thing: the blood of his enemy, Fiennes. When word reaches this adrift prince that his uncle has fled his kingdom to become a farmer in Iceland, Amleth hides among the slaves selected for his uncle's farm. It was prophesied that Amleth would face his uncle for the final time in a lake of fire, wielding a cursed blade. So when he arrives at his uncle's farm, he does not begin his revenge. Instead, he awaits in hiding, sowing fear and madness among his uncle's men in the night, slaughtering them and displaying their corpses to the others as horrific omens. With the aid of another slave girl, Olga, who he has fallen in love with, Amleth tears down his uncle's world piece by piece, tearing away everything that he loves until nothing remains. But then the unexpected happens. His love for Olga tempers his hatred for his uncle. Amleth turns from his destiny and chooses his love for his kin over his hate for his enemy, deciding to flee with Olga back to Norway to live in peace together. This happiness so foreign to Amleth is short-lived, as he discovers that Olga is pregnant with his child. They will never be safe. They will never be happy. As long as his uncle is alive, they will be hunted. Turning from his new path, Amleth returns to his destiny, meeting his uncle in the crater of an awakening volcano to face his fate. In the smoldering ashes and burning ore of the so-called gates of hell, this broken boy stands tall and avenges his father, giving his life to secure the future of his family. Carried on the wings of the Valkyrie, he is called home to Odin's hall in Valhalla, never to know pain or suffering again. Amleth may be a bad man by today's standard, but by Norse standards, he was heroic and honorable. There are many ideas, themes, and allegories present within this expansive tale, but none seem more poignant nor at the forefront as much as Amlet's struggle against the monster within. As a berserker, he was raised to be a monster, a fierce animal tearing at the world around him in search of blood. Additionally, he fears to become the monster that his uncle is. And when his mother is revealed to have been behind his father's death, she tells him that he's a monster just like his father was, eroding Amlet's faith in his father and in himself. Can the beast be tamed? Should it be tamed? Though he doesn't truly realize it, and the writers choose subtlety instead of spelling it out to the audience, what sets him apart from both the monster of his father and his uncle is his ability to love Olga. Amlet's mother told him that his father was incapable of loving anyone, that he was just a beast and nothing more. Amlet's ability to love and turn from his hate sets his family down a new path that doesn't need to be so bathed in blood. Olga is the cornerstone of the film and Amlet's arc. Without her inclusion, this film would just be a rage-filled bloodbath. She humanizes the monster and makes him believe in something bigger than himself. Beyond the stellar writing, all things technical about this film were near flawless. The cinematography and shot composition painted a beautiful picture of this near magic-like world in which anything is possible. The editing and astonishing musical score also lent to the utter immersion that this film offered. Very few films have ever been so well put together in every aspect. Now that we know a little of what I think, let's see what the fans and critics have to say. Now I know Rotten Tomatoes can't be wholly trusted. Most stuff that you can glean from the site is only from the individual reviews rather than the overall scores, but these reviews are better than I would have expected. I expected the critics to hate it for a myriad of reasons. They just don't normally like films like this, the higher brow thought-based films. And the audience, I thought it might be a little too complicated for a lot of them, and it's just a little too niche for them, so I didn't expect these scores. I rate it a lot higher than the audience, but my rating system's a little bit different, so the scores don't exactly, it's not a one-to-one swap, but let's read some of these individual ones. Vikings are metal, and it's just as simple as that. I love that. That's pretty great. Visually captivating, the score was fantastic. Storytelling on point. I very much agree with that. Perhaps a little drawn out, which some may consider to be tedious, but I just found it cinematically verbose. Well, we'll see. Well, say. An unequivocal banger, though, from Edgar's, and I think it's clear he has truly hit his stride. Yeah, I agree with most of that. It's very niche. A lot of people may find it too long, like this person's talking about, and, too complicated. It's very like one note, but in a good way, and that might not appeal to certain people, so that's fun. A simple story of revenge bloated with tons of gratuitous violence and crippled with several plot holes that will leave anyone with half a brain wondering, why did they make this movie? Holy fuck, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. There weren't really that many plot holes. I mean, the plot was very straightforward. Anything that you can call plot hole is filled in with magic. So, I mean, that's not technically a plot hole if it's filled in with internal consistency and universe laws that the universe in which it resides in it clarifies. This may very well be Edgar's breakout film to a wider audience. Highly recommend this film. I definitely do as well. It was long, drawn out, and slow. There were cool magic rituals in it, but I wanted a revenge movie. Best part of the movie was my date spilling her drink on her shirt. Okay, I don't agree with that at all. But yeah, a lot of positive stuff. Yeah, very authentic. It was very authentic. They definitely seemed to put a lot of effort into historical accuracy, and that's something that I very appreciate. But let's see what the critics are thinking. Forget fire and ice, though there is that too. Revel instead in ethereal spray. What more could you ask for? It's 88.95 at the beginning, and times are tough. Okay. Psychologically probing is squashed like many on-screen skulls. It also lends to a slog of a saga of slaughter. Wow. Okay. A little alliteration there. Let's get to why you're really here. Yes, Willem Dafoe does appear in both a Viking-era dog costume and in his underpants and as a disembodied head. It's all true. Yes, that is true. Emotional connection meanders, but the production and Skarsgård physical performance fly sky high. They're not really talking about anything that I would expect them to. Pretty generic reviews. Instead of roots in Shakespeare's play, the Northman merely serves as raw material, both half-baked and overcooked. I don't agree with that whatsoever. It's a film that sears itself into the senses via nightmares glimpsed into hellish half-light. It's a positive review, just an interesting way of putting it. Let's see if the critics have a different approach, the top critics. Yeah, nothing, a few more negative ones. Overall, I'm kind of surprised by some of these. I think it was an incredible film, one of the best movies of the last 5 to 10 years. But, not everyone agrees. And, these are pretty decent scores. But, it's very niche film. So it's completely understandable why certain people would not gravitate towards it. But it actually had a very low budget for the scope and the visual art that was put into it. Only $90 million. That seems pretty low for a film like this, just with how much went into it, how beautiful it was, how great the CGI was, how real everything felt. It's a very low. And it already got $3.4 million overseas, and it got an additional 1.3 domestically on the Thursday night box office. So it's starting out okay. About $5 million overall already, and that's a pretty good, decent pre-opening weekend. We'll really get to see probably Monday how much it really made this weekend, and that will really set it up for the future. I'm slightly concerned that it just doesn't appeal to enough of a wide audience, that it may have difficulty in the modern era making back its money. I can see that being a problem, but with how low the budget is, I'm confident. I'm very confident that it'll at least break even, but it may not really take off into the way that I wish it would. But those are my thoughts. Some pretty good numbers for it so far. We'll just have to see after this weekend to really gauge how it'll fare overall. I know it sounds like I implicitly loved this film, but there were some minor flaws that I took issue with. These flaws were also so minor that none of them escaped the realm of nitpickiness. A few scenes needed to breathe a little bit more, letting the impact of what had just occurred sink in before moving on to the next action or moment. Additionally, there are a few moments of levity that didn't quite land right, not fitting with the general tone of the film. These moments were few and far between, barely affecting my overall enjoyment of the film. But despite all that, this film can be called nothing but a technical masterpiece.
Your strength breaks men's bones. I have the cunning to break their minds.
Anya TaylorJoy brings to life the driven and spirited Russian witch Olga with a stellar performance. Anya is quickly becoming one of my favorite actresses, as she's been in several of my favorite films from the last few years. She's incredibly talented with a diverse range of performances. She brings this incredible range to the role of Olga, seamlessly portraying a strong and independent woman who falls in love and needs an equal. She's a perfect example of how Hollywood should write independent women, as opposed to Captain Marvel and others like her who are just flat and generally annoyed all the time. Olga has strength and perseverance while also capitalizing off her feminine wiles to be an intimidating foe for Fiennes and his family.
The king, milady, the king!
Nicole Kidman brought a weirdness and a cunning to the character of Amelint's mother that made it easy to understand her motivations and story. She may have ended up being the ultimate mastermind behind Amelint's misery, but even upon this discovery, Amelint knew he could never kill her intentionally. She knew how to manipulate men, and a man like Amelint specifically. This, sold by Nicole's performance, concisely made the audience understand why Amelint could never hurt her. Despite being a monster and a conniving bitch, Amelint couldn't help but love her. Only when no other option was available did Amelint strike her down. Nicole perfectly personified this twisted and maniacal character, compassion and love so foreign to her, yet compelling tools which she wielded with precision. She may have started out as a slave, but she did become something far more.
You behold your brother's gaze in amazement. I knew well you would. Pity you never paid a bastard's eyes heed before.
Fiennes was one of the least developed characters, at no fault of the actor, despite having quite a bit of screen time. Not all villains need to be complex or compelling, but I felt like there was something missing from his character. It's not what I would characterize as a flaw, however, giving a little bit more depth would not have gone amiss. His motivations were clear, yet not fleshed out. He loved the queen and wanted his brother's power, yet it came across as more superficial than the deep motivation it could have been. The film couldn't decide whether or not he was a kind and compassionate father who defends his family with honor, or a monster tearing at the tongues of those he hates. This conflict could have birthed the complexity needed to make him a compelling character. But without the due attention needed to develop this dichotomy within his character, it came across as more inconsistent than intentional.
Strike. But know that bearing a stolen ring makes no half-breed a king. Soaked in my blood, 'twill soon be sliding off your arm like a serpent.
Pretty much the entire supporting cast portrayed their characters as intended, giving the world an incredible amount of depth and character. Despite being in the movie for only a few minutes, Ethan Hawke's character left quite an impact on the story. Apart from being Amleth's primary motivation throughout the story, Ethan managed to carve out his own presence within the story even after he was gone. Willem Dafoe was also in the movie for only a few minutes, but left quite an impact on it. He didn't have much of a character to speak of beyond just being the fool, but he had a presence about him that was all due to Dafoe's incredible talent. The rest of the supporting cast did their jobs very well, doing exactly what was required of them to progress the story and motivate the other characters, but none of them stood out to the degree that they bear mentioning here.
For now I will haunt this farm like a hungry corpse returned from the grave. Fjolnir thinks Amleth is long dead.
Alexander Skarsgård's Amleth may come across as one note to the casual viewer, but there was a depth to his performance that perfectly personified his character. Alexander gave the audience a broken and driven man, consumed by the mantra that determined his fate. I will avenge you, father. I will save you, mother. I will kill you, Fjolnir. These few words drove this child into manhood and transformed him into a beast. The rage and fury and violence churning within his character came across in subtle choices by Alexander, culminating in an incredibly compelling performance that solidifies him as one of the greats. Even the softness that he showed later in the film only added to this complex and driven character. His life was never going to end any other way, even after turning from his destiny because of his love for Olga. His fate was set since he was a child. He always knew his journey was unavoidable. Alexander played this role to perfection, making the audience believe his pain, his lack of free will, and the deep love for his mother and Olga that defined him. The Northman is one of the greatest films I've seen in years. I cannot recommend it enough. I hope it becomes the classic that I believe it to be, but I fear that it won't. I'd have to give this film a 9. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.